are a lot of characters from the Warhammerverse, the universe that I want to be, but I can only really be one. Because once I'm one, then I can't be others. If it were to ever happen, if there were to be anything live action, I would have to be very aware of that. It is obviously character rich, especially the 40k universe. I suppose I could play a different character from the Warhammer Fantasy universe versus the 40k universe, but again, I'm now just dreaming. So I'd have to speak to the guys at Games Workshop and then see what happens.
5 years, you'd make a very good Greg Horizon. I think.
That would be exciting, yes, but then I'd burn Primarchs and the Captain General. So I don't really know.
I have a Warhammer question for you, and I have to admit this comes from my producer Peter.
Okay.
I don't know too much about Warhammer myself, so I'm just going to read it as written.
Okay.
There are lots of rumors about which 40k army is your favorite at the moment. Care to set the record straight about your favorite faction in 10th edition?
Well, I haven't played 10th edition.
Okay.
But regardless, it's still Custodes.
Okay.
Henry Cavill has reportedly had enough and is considering walking away from Amazon's highly anticipated Warhammer series. The project is said to be in turmoil, with fans expressing outrage over rumors that Amazon is pushing for changes to the iconic Warhammer lore. Allegedly, these changes threaten to rewrite decades of carefully crafted history. One of the most controversial claims is that Amazon has pressured Games Workshop to introduce female custodians, an elite group of all-male warriors in Warhammer's fiercely protected universe. This move has sparked debate among the franchise's dedicated fanbase. Cavill, a passionate fan of the series, is rumored to be pushing back against these creative changes to preserve the authenticity of the beloved lore. Insiders report that Henry Cavill is taking a bold stand against Amazon's alleged push for diversity-driven changes to Warhammer, potentially putting his role in the series at risk. Cavill, a known purist and dedicated fan of the franchise, is said to be fighting to protect the integrity of its lore. Fans have taken to social media, threatening a boycott and accusing Amazon of repeating the mistakes made with the Rings of Power, where critics claimed the original story was overshadowed by forced representation. With Cavill's involvement now in jeopardy, the future of the Warhammer series hangs in the balance, and Amazon could be facing a PR disaster of epic proportions. The question remains, could this controversy sink the series before it even launches? As tensions rise, many are eager to learn what led to the reported clash between Cavill and Amazon executives over these proposed changes to the beloved Warhammer universe.
It is the greatest privilege of my professional career to have this opportunity. I can't say too much again. It's early days still, but to have this opportunity to bring it to the screen and be at the tiller so it can be faithful is key to me. And this is the stuff I've been dealing with since I was a kid. This sort of is the stuff I spend my free time daydreaming about as an adult as well. And I get to bring it into life. And there is no greater reason than I join the industry than doing something like this. And I'm very happy to be.
The reported clash between Henry Cavill and Amazon executives centers on a controversial push to introduce female custodians into the Warhammer live-action series, a decision that has sparked intense debate and shaken the foundation of the franchise's long-revered lore. Traditionally, custodians have always been depicted as an all-male elite warrior group, symbolizing the guardians of tradition and sacred knowledge within the Warhammer universe. This isn't just seen as a minor character revision. For many fans, it represents a fundamental upheaval of a core aspect of the franchise. Cavill, known for his genuine passion and deep respect for Warhammer, reportedly views Amazon's proposed changes as a betrayal, a shallow attempt to satisfy modern diversity quotas at the expense of authenticity. Insiders describe Cavill standing firm, arguing that Warhammer's intricate and carefully established lore should remain intact. Many fans have rallied behind him, viewing the proposed changes as tokenism rather than meaningful representation, and warning Amazon against repeating mistakes that could alienate the franchise's devoted fanbase. Whether Cavill's resistance will succeed or lead to further turmoil remains to be seen. The situation between Henry Cavill and Amazon reportedly escalated over the decision to introduce female custodians into the Warhammer live-action series. What makes this issue even more contentious is the claim that Games Workshop, the very stewards of the Warhammer universe, did not support the change, but were pressured by Amazon to comply. Cavill, a staunch advocate for faithful adaptations, found himself at a crossroads, much like during his departure from The Witcher after clashing with showrunners over their disregard for source material. This parallel is impossible to ignore and equally damning. Cavill's commitment to preserving the essence of Warhammer stands in stark contrast to Amazon's alleged desire to reshape the franchise for modern audiences. Insiders suggest that Amazon's executives pushed forward, convinced that modernizing Warhammer by introducing gender changes would generate media buzz and attract a broader audience. However, for fans and Cavill, it feels like cultural vandalism disguised as progress. The Warhammer universe has a rich and deeply established lore, where custodians have always been portrayed as a sacred, all-male order, deeply intertwined with the franchise's narrative fabric. Changing that, many argue, is not organic but forced, disrupting decades of storytelling. Cavill's involvement was seen as the glue holding hopeful fans to this project. If he walks away, the adaptation risks collapse, leaving Amazon scrambling and the Warhammer community even angrier. Whether his stance is viewed as bravery or stubbornness, it sends a clear message. Cavill will not stand by as another cherished universe is reshaped for fleeting accolades. The stakes are massive. Amazon's gamble to modernize Warhammer may backfire spectacularly, alienating loyal fans and damaging the series before it even launches. The burning question remains: why is Amazon so intent on introducing female custodians, and why is this change so disruptive to the fabric of Warhammer lore?
To have this opportunity. I can't say too much again. It's early days still. But to have this opportunity to bring it to the screen and be at the tiller so it can be faithful is key to me. And this is the stuff I've been dealing with since I was a kid. This is sort of is the stuff I spend my free time daydreaming about as an adult as well. And I get to bring it into life, and there is no greater reason than I joined the industry than doing something like this, and I'm very happy to be here.
Most friends and loved ones know about that, and it's no shock. A lot of my family are into it, but I've definitely had people over at my house and very proudly showed them my miniatures, and they're like, okay. Yeah, and you can see them going, oh yeah, that's really good. And you can just see them thinking, God, get me out of here, I need another beer. I can't pretend to be interested this long.
Amazon's decision to introduce female custodians into the Warhammer series seems motivated by its broader strategy to align with modern diversity and inclusivity standards, a trend that has played out in several of the company's recent projects. From a corporate standpoint, this is likely an attempt to remain culturally relevant and generate media buzz, even if it means disrupting established lore. Big studios often operate on the assumption that diversity sells, but for Warhammer fans, this move feels like a bull charging into a sacred shrine. This isn't just about adding new characters, it's about fundamentally altering the fabric of a fictional universe built on consistency, tradition, and specific narrative rules. Custodians have been depicted for decades as an all-male, genetically modified elite force, the Emperor's unyielding protectors. In Warhammer, every detail matters. Introducing female custodians isn't merely a creative twist, but a tectonic shift that undermines the established lore and in-game logic fans have spent years exploring and cherishing. The decision has left many fans questioning whether Amazon understands or respects the core elements that have made Warhammer so beloved. By making such sweeping changes, Amazon risks alienating its most passionate audience, potentially jeopardizing the success of the adaptation before it even begins. Amazon's push for this change comes across as both arrogant and tone-deaf. Instead of elevating established female characters within the Warhammer lore or creating new, compelling stories, they opted for a heavy-handed rewrite that feels agenda-driven. This approach suggests a misunderstanding of what makes Warhammer so beloved in the first place. It's as if Amazon has learned nothing from the fan backlash surrounding similar decisions in franchises like the Rings of Power. They continue to play the same card, introducing diversity under the guise of innovation. However, it often appears to be a lazy attempt to win social approval, rather than a genuine effort to tell meaningful stories. This tactic frequently alienates loyal fans who understand and cherish the source material. With Warhammer, this move is particularly egregious. The franchise has a long-standing tradition built on intricate world-building and well-defined lore. Fans don't resist change for its own sake, but because they respect the integrity of the narrative. Ignoring this by forcefully rewriting core elements risks not only the show's success, but Amazon's relationship with one of the most passionate fan communities in entertainment. This move by Amazon is bound to spark an uproar. Warhammer is not a malleable franchise seeking modernization. It thrives on its gritty, unapologetic nature and boasts a fiercely dedicated fan base. The Custodian's lore is more than just a narrative backdrop. It's a cornerstone of what defines Warhammer. Changing that with a corporate wave of the hand isn't viewed as progress, but as sacrilege. For the community, this feels like a betrayal by a studio seemingly more interested in virtue signaling than in faithfully adapting a cherished series. And for Henry Cavill, a lifelong Warhammer fan who deeply understands the universe, it's clear why this particular change is a bridge too far. Altering the Custodians doesn't just disrupt continuity, it undermines the respect the story commands. This situation serves as a stark reminder. When studios prioritize fitting into cultural trends over staying true to the heart of a franchise, chaos and backlash inevitably follow. It's a pattern Amazon appears stubbornly determined to repeat, despite the warnings from previous missteps. So, is this just another example of Amazon's so-called diversity agenda steamrolling beloved franchises, as fans claim? Many would argue the answer is a resounding yes.
Voices that need to be represented, and I feel like, we've only touched the beginning tip of the iceberg on those voices. We've been kind of in our own backyard with our really talented creators, here in the US and mostly LA and in New York. And as you expand outside into different countries and travel to India and Brazil and India, my favorite trip I took this last year. I just love the ability to go meet storytellers that come from their own cultures, their own backgrounds, and giving them the reins to be able to tell a story that exists outside of that individual culture. So, there's amazing creators coming out of India that are, now have shows on our air that we are promoting as global originals. And it's been a real privilege to be able to do that. It should be that way. Language should no longer be a barrier on these shows' global appeal. And that's the way we view it. And what truly is a global show? A global show is a show that reaches and touches people in the world, and that doesn't extend just to shows that come out of the US. So that's one thing that we're definitely...
Yes, this situation stands as yet another glaring example of Amazon's diversity agenda being accused of steamrolling a beloved franchise, and this time the stakes feel even higher. Fans argue that Amazon's moves are not about genuine representation, but about forcing changes to meet surface-level metrics. Time and again, Amazon has faced backlash for its heavy-handed approach to modernizing existing lore and characters. From the Rings of Power controversially reimagining key characters to the Wheel of Time undergoing drastic shifts in character arcs, Amazon's playbook has become all too predictable. Now, Warhammer finds itself in the crosshairs. The introduction of female custodians doesn't seem rooted in thoughtful storytelling, but rather appears to be a rushed attempt to check the inclusivity box. To be clear, it's not the concept of female representation that offends most fans, it's the clumsy execution. Instead of honoring and building on decades of established history, Amazon seems intent on reshaping it to fit a modern mold. This approach alienates loyal fans who have invested years in exploring Warhammer's intricate lore. Thoughtful storytelling that introduces new elements organically would likely be celebrated. However, bulldozing through established narratives only breeds resentment and risks derailing the very project Amazon hopes to champion. If Amazon genuinely cared about diversity, why not explore or expand on the existing female characters already present in the Warhammer universe? Why forcibly inject characters where they've never belonged, breaking established lore in the process? For many fans, this signals the erosion of their favorite franchises, diluted to fit a narrative that often clashes with their original spirit. What makes it worse is the perception that these changes are not driven by genuine storytelling, but by pandering to fleeting trends. Fans see it as cynical, dismissive of canon, and ultimately disrespectful to the decades of intricate world-building and passionate storytelling that define Warhammer. These are not blank slates ripe for reimagining, but carefully crafted universes forged with blood, lore, and devotion. What stings even more is the apparent disregard Amazon seems to have for the consequences. The company has developed a pattern of imposing changes, bracing for backlash, and then spinning narratives to deflect criticism. When fans inevitably react with outrage, it becomes a war of attrition, a tug-of-war between those who cherish the authenticity of the source material and a corporation determined to reshape it in its own image. Now, Warhammer fans find themselves in the storm, fighting to protect the lore they love. And they're not wrong to see this as yet another battle in the ongoing war over the soul of beloved franchises. The Warhammer fanbase has reacted with intense backlash to the rumored changes, driven by a deep sense of loyalty to the franchise's rich and carefully crafted lore. The introduction of female custodians is seen as a fundamental disruption, breaking decades of established world-building and in-game logic. Fans view this move as a shallow attempt to capitalize on diversity trends rather than a genuine effort to tell compelling stories. Having witnessed similar controversies with the Rings of Power and the Wheel of Time, they fear Warhammer will suffer the same fate, a diluted version of itself. For many, this isn't just about creative changes, but a battle to preserve a cultural touchstone that holds immense personal significance. With Henry Cavill reportedly standing against these changes, fans see him as a champion for authenticity. His potential departure would further erode trust in the adaptation and amplify concerns about Amazon's dire.
Geekiest thing would have to be my Warhammer stuff.
We're talking
Hands
Games
down.
Workshop, aren't we? Yeah.
Yeah. It's that took me a while to kind of confess to openly and publicly.
Dare I say it? I know exactly what you mean. A collection of white undercoat spray paint that just lurks in the back of the cupboard.
Yeah, it's like, what's this? For graffiti.
Underarm deodorant. You know it is.
Yeah.
Sometimes I paint Cal. Certainly not Warhammer. No. No, that's a great answer. It's hard to top it, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah, I love it, and I've that's the stuff I've done in as far as hobby stuff, the stuff which my escapism is concerned. All the reading I do outside of work is normally based around that or fantasy authors. So yeah, and I've been involved in the Warhammer world for
40,000 years.
40,000 years. No, well, longer, depending how you look at it. But since I was probably 10.
Nice.
Yeah, so a long time.
Yeah, smell of paint in the kitchen. Tell me though.
Literally brings back sense memories.
Warhammer fanbase has erupted in fierce backlash over the rumored changes, and it's not hard to see why. This passionate community has long been protective of the franchise's tightly woven tapestry of history, rules, and narrative arcs, elements fans have invested countless hours and heartfelt devotion into. The introduction of female custodians, which contradicts established canon, feels like an uninvited intrusion into a sacred space. For many fans, the outrage stems from a sense of betrayal. They believe Amazon's push isn't about enhancing Warhammer's story, but about bending it to fit modern social agendas. This isn't a rejection of diversity, as detractors might claim, but a revolt against rewriting cherished lore. It feels like an attempt to hijack the universe and transform it into something it was never meant to be. The intensity of the backlash is only amplified by Amazon's track record. Fans are no strangers to watching studios butcher beloved franchises under the guise of modernization, with the Rings of Power standing as a prime example of what can go wrong. The community fears Warhammer may now suffer the same fate. When studios prioritize diversity checklists over storytelling integrity, Warhammer enthusiasts fear they are next on Amazon's chopping block, and they're determined to fight back. Social media is ablaze with angry posts, petitions, and calls for boycotts as fans rally to defend their beloved lore from what they see as a cynical and unnecessary rebranding. Adding fuel to the fire is Games Workshop's alleged compliance with Amazon's demands, deepening the sense of betrayal. This is a company built on creating and fiercely protecting Warhammer's intricate lore, yet it now appears to be capitulating under corporate pressure. Fans haven't taken this lightly, lighting up forums, canceling subscriptions, and making it clear they won't support a studio willing to sacrifice its roots for corporate mandates. The visceral reaction goes beyond the mere introduction of female custodians. It's about protecting the very soul of Warhammer. Fans view this as a stand against the growing trend of corporate interference in storytelling. They believe Warhammer has thrived because of its gritty, uncompromising vision, and tampering with that in a forced manner is a step too far, a line in the sand they refuse to let Amazon cross. For these fans, this isn't just a creative disagreement. It's a fight to preserve the heart and authenticity of a universe they deeply love. They know what's at stake, and they're willing to go to war for it. Henry Cavill's potential departure could indeed be the death knell for Amazon's Warhammer live-action series. Cavill isn't just a Hollywood star, he's a devoted fan of the franchise, respected by the community for his genuine passion and understanding of the lore. His involvement lent credibility and hope to the adaptation, signaling that it would be crafted with care and respect for the source material. Losing him would shatter that trust and likely alienate much of the fan base before the series even launches. This situation highlights a recurring issue with Amazon's handling of established lore. Fans have accused the studio of prioritizing diversity checklists and corporate mandates over authentic storytelling, as seen in the controversial adaptations of The Witcher, which Cavill famously left, and The Rings of Power. These moves often result in alienating loyal audiences who feel that beloved franchises are being reshaped to fit modern trends rather than staying true to their roots. If Amazon doesn't course correct, the broader impact could be long-term damage to fan trust and enthusiasm for adaptations of beloved properties. The lesson is clear. Authenticity and respect for established lore are non-negotiable for passionate fan communities. Ignoring this risks not only individual project failures, but also a tarnished reputation for future endeavors.
Personally, geek out about. Henry, let's start with you.
Specifically, which universe or just?
I mean, just anything.
Oh my goodness, here we go.
How long have you got?
You've got so many and I've got none.
Yeah, I was like, how much time do we have?
Listen, I'll stay here all day listening.
Ruling out The Witcher.
Yeah, no, The
Okay.
Witcher.
I mean, the easy answer is Warhammer 40,000. That is my jam. I have been into it since I was 10.
What's your army at the moment?
Custodes.
Yeah, I'm going Necrons next year.
Wait. Oh.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Were you into?
Yes.
Were you into this before, or is this a new thing?
Let's just assume that anything nerdy I've been doing for a good 33
Oh wow,
years.
we could talk for hours.
Yeah. No, so yeah, that's my jam, and that's the stuff I do in my free time.
That's amazing, amazing. I'd love to see your armies. Do you paint them yourself?
I do. Yes.
That's
So cool.
Yeah.
Is it?
That is really, it's
Is
cool
it?
when, yeah, it is cool.
Cool in
I
a
like
certain
painting.
world,
I like
yeah.
painting, there you go. So
It
I
is-
think
it is
I'd really
so
enjoy that.
therapeutic.
I think you'd be surprised. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I think
actually
I'd
really.
Henry Cavill's potential departure from the Warhammer live-action series could spell disaster for the entire project, and fans know it. Cavill isn't just another actor. He's a genuine Warhammer enthusiast whose passion for the franchise served as a major draw for the adaptation. His involvement was a beacon of hope for fans wary of corporate interference. If he walks, it won't just be a casting change. It'll be a seismic blow to the project's credibility, likely extinguishing any remaining excitement among the fan base. The parallels to Cavill's exit from The Witcher are striking and should serve as a massive red flag for Amazon. His departure from that series reportedly stemmed from creative clashes with showrunners accused of disregarding the source material. Fans were devastated, and the show's reputation nosedived almost immediately. Cavill was more than just Geralt of Rivia. He was a guardian of the lore, a role he took seriously, much like his dedication to Warhammer. Losing him in this scenario would send a clear message. Authenticity and fan respect come second to corporate mandates. This situation highlights a larger issue with Amazon's handling of established lore. Warhammer isn't the first beloved franchise to face such challenges under Amazon's stewardship. Fans are tired of seeing their cherished stories reshaped for fleeting trends rather than honored for what made them enduring. Cavill's rumored clash with Amazon underscores a growing tension between studios and loyal fan communities, a battle for creative integrity that fans aren't willing to lose again. This situation underscores a recurring and contentious issue with Amazon's handling of beloved franchises. Fans are rightfully concerned about Warhammer following in the footsteps of the Rings of Power, The Witcher, and Wheel of Time, where creative liberties alienated longtime audiences. Amazon's approach, viewing established universes as blank slates to fit modern trends, has consistently clashed with the desires of loyal fan communities who crave authentic adaptations that elevate the original stories rather than rewrite them for superficial appeal. Henry Cavill's potential departure would be a critical blow, symbolizing a rejection of corporate mandates at the expense of storytelling integrity. Cavill, revered for his dedication to respecting source material, stands as a figure fans rally around to protect Warhammer's authenticity. His exit would likely extinguish much of the fan base's excitement and trust in the series. The message to studios is clear: meddling with established lore comes with consequences. Fans invest deeply in these worlds, and dismissing their passion for the sake of trend-driven rebranding can lead to widespread disillusionment. If Amazon continues down this path, they risk alienating the very audiences they aim to capture, diminishing their credibility as caretakers of legendary franchises. As for Cavill, his decision to stay or walk away will likely shape the fate of this adaptation. Should he fight to preserve Warhammer's authenticity, or is the battle already lost? The stakes are high, not just for Warhammer, but for how studios approach beloved stories moving forward.